I'll now call upon our moderator, Joshua Chan, to introduce his panel for the next session. Thank you.
All right, guys. Very good afternoon. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, but I promise to keep this as interesting and value added for your time here. Well, as you can see, we have an esteemed panelists here from a lot of the top companies, including myself. So my role here today mainly is a moderator for this session to realistic routes to automation. So I represent Identech Solutions. Now let me start with a question for all of you, right? So since you're talking on this topic of automation, let us try to quantify how many container terminals in Asia do you think are automated today? Is it half? A show of hands, is it half, do you think? Or is it a quarter? Just a handful? Just a few? Right? Something to think about. I'll come back to this question later on in my presentation. I'll just have a few slides. But the reason I ask is this. While the industry often talks about full automation, towards the goal that's like the utopia, we know that in reality, in Asia especially, a lot of terminals are running on manual operations, and they're doing fine, right? If you're not automated, doesn't mean that you are not making things work, right? And yet there's a huge potential for us today in our discussion on towards automation, and we see all the benefits. But the question is, how do we actually capture this efficiently, to derive the safety gains that we can get through targeted and phased automation projects, as many of our speakers has mentioned earlier, including on the super intelligence part of it, which I will talk about how we can interface. And that's what we want to explore today, right? Next slide, please. Maybe I can click. Yep. So let me just share a bit about myself for context, which the rest of them will get to share as well before we talk about questions, the Q&A. Identech Solutions has a long history of success in automation space, for asset tracking. And you see on the left and the right, the first two on the left, our refrigerated monitoring, which is automating this whole process, which is traditionally very laborious for the terminal. And also our terminal tracker solution, where we basically do inventory management. So from our perspective in the marine and port sector, realistic automation starts from automating these two processes easily. We can see the numbers there, 65,000 reefer containers that is using our solution to monitor. Right? This is not a sales pitch to you, but to show to you the extent, of how automated reefer monitoring is already being deployed, 65,000. If you can name a single terminal, right, that has this capacity, please let us know. 65,000. That's what we're looking at. Now we see this as a building block of the phase automation that we're talking about. Now traditionally, you have technicians going up in the rain and the sun, and it's a very tiring job to do. And our business actually boomed a lot, surprisingly, during COVID times. As you know, there's manpower shortages, lack of resources. You cannot have certainty of people going to the yard to check on the containers every 4 to 6, 8 hours, round the clock. So the question is that if something that can be done, already by a digital solution, why do we send people out? Is it just purely about the cost of labor that we'll discuss about later? Or is it, deriving a certain resilience of continuity in our operations, in our business that we want to achieve, beyond just cost alone? So we see a 80% reduction with our solution, or with other solutions that are similar that can do the same. Terminal tracker, basically we talk about here, it's another building block they can tap on for small terminals. We're looking at 300,000 TEUs, 500,000 TEUs, even a million TEUs or more. These solutions are suitable for terminals of every sort of size. Another area here we're talking about is visibility across yard, gate, and quay. Having accurate inventory and real-time tracking means productivity is, improved. There's no wastage, no idle time, as what Joe talked about in PDP. And also touching on the point earlier by RBS on superintelligence, this is where IdenTech comes in. What kind of information is being fed into the system, into the TOS, really matters. Otherwise, you'll be rubbish in, rubbish out, right? So for us, we are the part where we basically are able to provide the accurate, live information from our devices that feeds to the TOS. Beyond that central computing power that we need accurate information that we can get from the ground, and that is what we represent, and that's where we find our value. Now, just to share our global experience in that sense, at IdenTech, we have supported a lot of terminals worldwide, 70 terminals. And what's interesting is that the value here is about the diversity of our customers. From the bigger hubs, global hubs, where we're talking about the PSA, the DP World and all, to the smaller regional ports, long-established operators or even new ones, right? For us, each project, we are able to consolidate all these best practices from across all these established or new terminals and put it under one platform. That's what we bring to the table to our customers, so they do not have to start from scratch. And I think a lot of terminals will also benefit through this way of operating because we share not just our best practices, but the integration lessons, as we know, how crucial it is for any automation projects. And how do we land on these projects safely in terms of how do we ensure, even cybersecurity that we're talking about, how do we implement those best practices? And we, from time to time, actually, to be honest, learn a lot from our customers. We don't profess to have all, the knowledge and the intelligence that we have, but from the different projects that we work on, we are able to consolidate. And that's how I think we can work together, as a community to bring about a change, driving automation forward, driving productivity and innovation in this space. So what we have learned so far is that there's no single path to automation, really. The most successful projects are faced starting with what makes sense locally, proving value, then we scale up. Now, this slide is talking about, remember the question that I asked, how many terminals are there, automated terminals are there in Asia? So I attempt to answer this question, right? If you do some research, you can get that there's actually 72 fully or partially automated terminals worldwide, representing just 8%. This is based on port economics data. And in Asia, we have approximately about 25 to 30, right? So if automation is such a great, and wonderful, endeavor, then why are we just seeing, a low take-up rate? So that's a question for us to consider, even as for vendors ourselves. How do we understand this situation? Why are some certain terminals not adopting it? Or why are certain terminals adopting it? Is it the scale? Is it the value that can bring? For IdenTech's role, our company in this is, what you're seeing here is the world's largest automated terminal at this point in time is PSA Tuas. We're happy to be there. As we said, we have learned a lot even from our customers, big and small. But for the mega ports as such, we see that there is definitely a strong adoption for this sort of technology in the reefer space because it's easy to implement. It can be a standalone, it can be integrated, and it really helps to reduce a lot of waste. Now, of course, we have to address the integration risks that we talk about in any of these projects, right? So that's where we got to work very closely with the project teams, with the implementation team from our side, and with any of the companies to understand what are the unique problems, at different parts And I can share with you in Asia, a lot of times, actually, one of the unique problems is about language. Especially language, the local language. Perhaps in Chinese, perhaps in Indonesia, Bahasa. How do we even communicate effectively, to understand what the customer wants and wants to see? So that is something for us to consider on how to make the best of the situation. So most operators, especially in Asia, are still choosing targeted solution from our perspective first, because they deliver fast wins. Of course, there are risks too, such as system integration, as I mentioned, but with the right planning, we can bring it to a success. And that brings us back to today's theme on realistic routes to automation, right? So with that context set, I'm excited to hear from our panelists. They will share their own experience and strategies on how Asian terminals can adopt automation in ways that are phased, cost-effective, and scalable. We have a 10-minute, if I have your time, of this Q&A with our esteemed panelists, and I think this is where the most interesting part is, right? So, and we have a port operator, representing, in Johor. So now out of out of the 5 of us, there's only one, and I think that's where the interest, that's where we want to hear, a lot more perspective from him, right? Don't you guys agree? Right. So maybe let me just start with a question, perhaps director that perhaps Khairi can share from his perspective,
Yes.
On that. So the question is this: when manual labor is still cost-effective in many Asian terminals, that we are talking about today, so what makes automation a compelling investment, and where does the real ROI come from? A lot of times, we justify to the ports right now.
Right.
Let's hear from him,
Thank you, Josh. It's a very good question. So the idea of a full automation port with minimal human interventions and maximum digitalizations, it has become something that what we call a holy grail in our industries. And we often see a glossy videos where truck entering terminal without any human interventions, container gliding effortlessly, AGV operating in the perfect harmony, and the list of automation goes on. And while some leading ports with a matured economy, China and Europe, for example, they have achieved the version of this, the version of automations. So back to your questions and to our topic for today, we must ask a harder question to ourselves. Does a full automated port are even practical, realistic, or even desirable for most terminals in Asians today? And to answer this, from my point of view as a port operator, not yet for most. Why? You see, a full automation, while the technology is still feasible, remains prohibitively expensive and operationally complex. The upfront of investments are immense, not only in the system integrations, but the equipment, the civil work, long-term training, maintenance, warranty, and support service. And the most terminal in Asia today, where the margins are tight, manual labor are relatively affordable. Yeah? And we look into the land constraints, it's very significant, especially if we look into the brownfield terminal, yeah, Abby? And the financial analysis, if we look into it, the cost-benefit ratios or the ROI, the payback, or whatever terms, the finance term you want to call it, it doesn't really add up, at least not for today,
Yeah.
right? But don't get me wrong here,
Yeah.
because there's 4 vendors here. So don't get me wrong, I need to be very careful with my statement here. It doesn't mean that we should avoid automations. It simply means that we need to be more strategic. Automation is not an all or nothing proposition. So we need to evaluate our operations and to determine the appropriate level of automations based on our unique context.
Yeah.
What's the container throughput, the labor model, the customer expectation, infrastructure readiness, and the long-term visions. And the goal to automate is not for the sake of keeping up with others, but to automate with a purpose. So what are the purpose? The purpose are the pain point of the terminals, the pain point where the inefficiencies that cost us money, that cost us time, that cost us safety. So these are the areas that we need to focus first or target first. And yes, when we talk about automation as a port operator, we think about investments. And one of the biggest challenges that we face is to justify the automation investments when the manual operations are still viable. And that is a valid concern, Josh.
Yeah. Thanks.
Viability, are we running out?
No.
Viability and sustainability are not the same thing. Manual operations may be sufficient today, but are they future-proof? So all this make me believe that automation is not just about labor saving. It's about resilience, it's about consistency, it's about predictability, especially in the face of labor shortage, rising customer expectations, increasing competitions. And if an automated project, it can reduce delays, it can improve productivity, and it can enhance safety, the long-term value could actually outweigh the initial costs. So all of this, how do we identify what to automate? How? With data. We must begin with the data-driven assessment of our operations. Where do the container sits to learn? Where do we experience the most human error? Where is the repetitive work that add little value? And that could be our gate operation or yard management, equipment scheduling, or even documentation workflows.
Yep.
So once this area has been identified, we must begin with a low-risk, high-impact project. A scalable and measurable.
Yeah.
So this brings me to what I believe the most practical approach for Asian terminal today, a scalable and a phased automation strategy. Yeah? Rather than, we go for a full automation in one giant leap, we can phase our investment over the time. Start with a small automation project. Like Johor Port, for examples. This year alone, we have 2 automation projects. One gate automation for container terminal and another one for unmanned railway system for break bulk terminals. And yes, we must start with a small automation project. Validate the technology in the controlled environments, learn from the early deployments, and most importantly, is to build our internal capabilities, train our people, strengthen our data infrastructure, and gradually evolve the operations models. We need to cut it?
No, it's okay.
So this method, which I believe will actually reduce the risk. Right? So, however, we must be very clear. Partial automations come with its own complexities. The integration between the manual and the automated systems, it can be very messy. Safety must be carefully managed in the hybrid environments where machine and people are coexist. Operations must be maintained during the transitions period. And this is very serious issue, Josh.
Yeah.
And that's why planning, open architecture, and strong project governance are essentials.
Yeah.
So all of this, where does that leave us today? Is full automation is our future? I believe the answer is yes, but eventually, as the technology become more matured, more affordable, we might find ourselves near to the tipping point than what we expected. So to wrap it up everything, Josh, let's not chase the automation as part of what we call a buzzword or a benchmark, but to pursue it as a tool, one to many, to build a smarter port, to build a safer port, and to build a more sustainable port for the future.
Yep.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Khairi, for that perspective. I think a lot of food for thought. I hope we are all taking notes. But maybe I can just direct one more question, maybe to Shalev, and the rest is that, we talk about a phased approach, right? What's your take about, doing a phased approach in terms of perhaps are we able to do a POC, as something that we have encountered a lot in Asia, right? From the vendor side, especially. So what are some of the perspectives I think we can just throw in the comments or so, Thanks.
Is that working? So from OCR perspective, we usually don't do POC. We have many terminals around the world with OCR systems already. And what people need to understand, an OCR system is not just you put a portal and a few cameras. You have to do integration with the TOS. You have to train the people. It's exception handling. So a POC doesn't really make sense, because yes, I can take you anywhere, in the world that we have an OCR system, and you can see, yes, we read the OCR in 99%.
Yeah.
But that's not the goal of the system. The goal of the system is to make the port more efficient, and increase the throughput, increase the safety, everything that Khairi said before. And POC is just not going to show the real results.
Yeah, sure. How about Abby? Do you have anything you want to add on or mention on this?
I totally agree with Shalev. Because especially in Malaysia, actually, there's few times you are asked, do you do POC? And also in, I think, another country, here in ASEAN. I already explained that this, if you want to do the auto gate, for example, auto gate is not like what Shalev is saying. It's not just have an OCR portal. The whole gate automation actually is, which if you are really interested, we can show in our booth just next door. It's we have like different sectors. It's like the physical setup and also the analysis, report system, the AI algorithm, and also the interface with TOS and the interface with other system in your terminal. So the total gate automation is not just only one portal with a few cameras. If you give us one lane, say, okay, put a portal, put a few cameras, then we will check how much is the hit rate. But if I give you the OCR cameras, which the hit rate is more than 99%, 100%, you can say this is a good system? I can tell you no. Because in this moment, many companies can give you the OCR camera, reach the hit rate more than 99%, but that means this will be a good gate system. If you want to know more, we can discuss in the booth, but my answer is totally is a no to POC. I agree with it.
But as a port operator, we want you to do the POC. I got my colleagues down back there, and they will agree with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
They want to do POC.
We want to do POC, but it's not only for one lane. For the whole terminal, a POC is okay.
Well, I think that's a fair point. I think it gives us a perspective of the tension that's there. Don't get us wrong. I think as service providers, right, we definitely want to satisfy, the port's requirement of doing the POC. But at the same time, we all know that, there's a difficulty to what extent, because there's a lot of system integration involved. And it's out of that completeness that we want to present to the port, but it's at the cost of the vendor, and also at the time of the terminal, because you have to spend time, your IT teams, your technical teams have to be involved, to do the integration. It's not just on the vendor side alone. So maybe another add-on from John.
Opposite opinion to my colleagues here. I actually love POCs because we get really, really good retention from, so it's an easy foot in the door, and get to prove what the value is. And so Khairi, I think, mentioned starting with the data side of things, and when we start with key crane analytics, it's very clear, these are all the bottlenecks that need to be solved, and we can, draw a very clear line from, if, this is the ROI that's going to happen from pursuing this product, and being able to derive, the mathematical and project-based kind of outputs that you want from that.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Shalev.
I just think that a POC, it depends if you provide a product or if you provide a solution.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the difference is. Yes, everybody wants a POC, but, and forget the cost of the POC. It just doesn't make sense in case of OCR. Again, yes, can I do a POC on a crane OCR system? Yeah, I'll put a few cameras, I'll show you that I read, OCR in the read rates that you want. But that's what it's not, like, when I'm talking to vendors, I'm trying to explain, everybody going in the OCR world is like, oh, the percentage of reads. It's important, but that's not what's really important in the end, because what's important is that the whole system and how you will increase the productivity of the area that you're trying to do it. So.
Yeah, I think what Shalev is trying to say is also depending on the solution or the type, the product that, that is.
All right. Last word from me is let's agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I have one extra input. It's actually, as Shalev was saying, it's not only hit rate. It's not only hit rate, but for us, the OCR, the gate automation, also another key crane automation. We talk about a job rate. Job rate is not just your OCR camera can read very good data. Then in the end, your system is working well. You have to also see about your algorithm behind working and the integration as what Joshua was talking.
Yeah. The detection is just about the first step, on the accuracy and the hit rate, but there are more, to it. And thanks for such a lively discussion. I'm sure, all of us will be happy to take the conversation over lunch or beyond. So feel free, to catch up. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, Joshua. Thanks for that. And I agree up there. I've been CEO of a port, and now I'm on the other side. And POCs, I've been on both sides of the arguments, and it could go for hours.